Okay, we've got a great number joining us already. I think we're going to go ahead and just get started in respect of everyone's time. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is the University of Minnesota Alumni Association, and today's webinar is on retirement savings, how to navigate the road ahead. This is going to be presented by our wonderful partners with TCF Bank and a group of panelists led by Brendan, who will be their moderator. We feel that we have some exciting topics for you to consider. We ask that if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom, and we will be answering those as time permits. We always want to be respectful of your time, and this will be no more than an hour. But given questions, we will try to answer all questions we can. If we miss some, we will be happy to address those at a later time. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Julie Hudak. I am with the UMAA, University of Minnesota Alumni Association. And let me advance to my next slide here. Membership powers everything we do. Before we get started this presentation, I want to thank our Alumni Association members, donors that make initiatives like this alumni webinar series possible. If you are interested in learning more about the Alumni Association, please visit us at umnalumni.org/membership. Just in case you have more time that you would like to continue to educate yourself on other topics, we have a couple more upcoming webinars. On November 19th, Becoming an Entrepreneur and a panel discussion. Also on December 10th, Navigating Your Identity, LGBTQ in the Workplace. But always you can watch for any upcoming webinars on our website, umn.org/virtual. So just a couple of housekeeping topics. As always, you can certainly listen on your laptop, but if you prefer to use your phone, there is the dial-in number if that gives you better audio, and you will need the webinar ID for this event today. It is a one-click option, and you'll have that confirmation in your email. And as I have said, we love your questions. Please ask them, but we ask that you put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our panel with the TCF Bank in partnership with us, that it makes it possible to present topics such as this today. As I said, Brendan Trepido, sorry, so I hope I'm saying that right, is the Managing Director at TCF Wealth. He will be our moderator for today, and we will hand it off to you. And Brendan, I'm going to stop sharing, and it's yours.
Great, thanks, Julie. Appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation this afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining. So we said, my name is Brendan. I am the Managing Director of TCF Wealth. I get the honor of emceeing today's conversation. We'll go probably about 45 minutes or so, and would love for questions to be rolling in, and we can answer those towards the end. But we've got a great conversation planned around retirement savings. First of all, let me, for those, I'm sure many of you know TCF Bank, but you may not know TCF Wealth. TCF Wealth provides banking, investment, insurance, trust and estate administration, retirement services to over 25,000 clients. We have over 150 professionals. You're going to meet 3 of them here today, and we cover 6 states. TCF obviously expanded through its merger with Chemical Bank, which was based in Michigan. So we bring a host of new services to our clients throughout the 6 states. We also manage $6 billion. So we take great pride in that, and obviously have great personal responsibility for managing $6 billion of client assets. And we've been doing this for over 60 years, providing timely advice and guidance to our clients. And today, hopefully, we'll provide some of those insights and guidance that we provide our clients here in this conversation today. What I want to do is kind of outline some of the things we will be talking about. Obviously, the theme is retirement savings. Most of us think about that a lot, whether you're in retirement or planning for retirement. What we're going to be talking about today in regards to retirement savings is obviously there's a great crisis in our country today. The pandemic has really impacted many of our fellow citizens, those in retirement, those still trying to get to retirement. So we're going to touch upon the pandemic and some of the impact that we've seen, and some of the things that you may not be aware of that have come from Congress and other ways to help soften the blow to some of us who are dealing with those financial challenges. We're going to talk about the basics of retirement planning, how to get started. For those that may be younger on this call today, we'll talk a little about that. Or those that are in retirement, we'll touch on some of those challenges that you need to consider while you're managing your assets in retirement. And we'll talk about some of the things you should avoid while you're managing or planning for retirement. So put that in the category of the do's and don'ts. And so we'll touch on some of those topics. Before we get into the conversation, let me officially introduce the panel. Hopefully you can see all the panelists. But I'm going to start with Kenna Graham. By way of introduction, Kenna Graham is one of our relationship officers in retirement plan services. Kenna works with employer-based retirement plans. She works very closely with business owners, plan sponsors, and most importantly, participants, those that have to make the decision how much they save for retirement. She gets to provide the education to those participants and really encourage them to participate in those plans. Kenna has been in the industry for almost a decade, started as a financial advisor, a licensed advisor, and she's a certified cash balance consultant. So Kenna, welcome. Our next panelist is Dave Hawkins. Dave Hawkins is a financial advisor with TCF Investment Services, which is part of TCF Wealth. TCF Investment Services is a full service investment program that we place registered advisors throughout all our bank branches. And you'll be seeing more of that, especially in Minnesota, as we expand into the market with that service. Dave works very closely with his clients, providing retirement saving ideas and assistance, whether it be around Social Security planning, investment strategies. So we've got a great panelist in Dave who works daily on those issues with his clients. Dave has been with TCF for almost 18 years, and he's been in the industry for almost over 2 decades. Dave is a certified financial planner. He's also a chartered financial consultant, and he has a master's degree in science of financial services from the American College. So welcome, Dave. And our last panelist we've got with us is Nala Wijesuria. Nala is a wealth advisor who is based in Minnesota. He's with the TCF Private Bank. He provides our high net worth clients with advice and guidance, and he works with multi-generational families. He works fairly closely with those clients to help manage their wealth, but more importantly, help them think about their vision and to be able to kind of articulate the purpose of their wealth. And he's also been in the industry for almost 15 years. He recently joined TCF, and we're thrilled to have Nala with us. Nala specializes in banking, investment planning, and overall financial planning advice and guidance. So we've got a great panel lined up today to tackle this weighty topic of retirement savings. And the theme is navigating the challenge ahead. So why don't we just jump right in? And I'm going to pose this question to all 3 panelists, but we'll start with Kenna. Kenna, retirement means a lot to many different people, but you deal with a lot of different types of clients. And I'd love to get your thought as you think about broadly when you hear the term retirement. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the clients you work with?
Well, thanks, Brendan, and thank you everyone who has plugged in with us today. So at TCF in Retirement Plan Services, my clients are businesses who have decided that they want to offer a retirement savings benefit to their employees. So part of my job is educating employees on that benefit and then the importance of saving for retirement. That said, what does retirement mean for all of these employees? Well, simply, retirement, it's that beautiful place we've all heard of. You know, the sun is shining, the birds are maybe chirping, and hey, the alarm bells aren't ringing because we no longer have to get up and go to work every day. So these employees, Brendan, they've put the time in and they are at a point where they get to retire those responsibilities. However, you know, when I'm talking to employees, especially those who are younger, here I like to give a bit of a reality check to this beautiful place called retirement. The deal is, once we all get there, we are still going to have bills to pay. So the question is going to become, how do we afford our retirement, when we're no longer working full time, we're no longer bringing in that income. And I think Dave, you would agree with me. You know, it's important that our clients, each individual, figure out the meaning for them for retirement. And then they need to work with us. They need to seek advice to come up with that plan. And Dave, I'm turning.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thanks, Kenna. Yes, I do completely agree. Yeah, for our clients in their pre-retirement years, what does retirement mean to them? As you had mentioned, as they're progressing down this, this road towards retirement, the theory of retirement can mean a lot of different things to folks. For some people, they're just hoping for less stress and peace of mind, time with family and friends. Others, they're going to be more active, depending on their health. They may be traveling, wanting to work part-time, but starting up a business possibly. So they may be wanting to, become and have a much more active lifestyle. And depending on what aspirations they have, those they're going to require different resources. And as we help them through this journey, we need to, take a look at the financial roadmap of where they're at currently and to help them navigate, to their goal. But yet for the clients that are in the retirement years, there's a lot of clients I work with that are currently in retirement as well. And for those folks, we need to continuously monitor and make adjustments over time. We may have an unforeseen issue that may arise with one of the children. We could have an unforeseen issue that may arise from a unforeseen health related issue. Unfortunately, it's not always, sunny days. So we do have some challenges at times. We got to try to work through, and I'm sure Nala would agree that clients, different ones have different views of the retirement journey, and some will be concerned about other areas such as transferring wealth to the next generation.
Absolutely, Dave. You bring up an awesome point, and like Kenna and Dave, like you guys mentioned, every client, their vision, their purpose when they go towards retirement is completely different. So I work with a lot of individuals who have significant wealth and resources in all aspects of their life. So having said that, they do have different visions, aspirations with retirement. Oftentimes with the clients that we deal with, the ideal retirement, everyone wants to not worry about where the money is going to come from and things like that. So a lot of clients, they want to travel, they want to provide for their grandkids, their generations. But with the clients that I work with, the vast majority, they're focused on wealth transfer. So they want to know what's the best way we can transfer wealth in the most strategic, tax efficient way. So that's where we help our clients with different strategies, how we're going to transfer their wealth in a very tax efficient manner and things like that. And another point, the vast majority of wealth transfers fail because there's lack of communication and lack of preparation. So that's where we take a disciplined approach to help our clients to navigate through different times in their life. So retirement, it's definitely something different for our clients, but I think ideally in the end, what a lot of clients are trying to accomplish, not to worry where money is going to come from, stress-free life, travel, provide for their family, and to have a worry-free life.
Now, you said something very interesting there, kind of help, right? And I'd like to pick that up is kind of the next question. Again, for all three of you, maybe Ken, if you could maybe lead this off, is you think about retirement, obviously people need to define it, what does retirement mean to them? As they work with you, how do you help your clients achieve that goal of retirement?
Well, I'll take that, Brendan. And I'll bring it back to that employer-sponsored plan. Again, because that's a very common starting point for many when it comes to retirement. So when I'm helping my clients, I'm educating their employees on the benefits of the retirement plan. So what I want to do first, upon hire, these employees need to know, okay, how does this plan work? How much to save? What are the tax benefits? And we got to talk about the investments. So when talking to employees about how the plan works, I'm helping them understand eligibility requirements. That's important. So how soon can you get started with your employer and started saving? Can you start right away? Or do you need to work 3 months or a year with that company? Once an employee can get started with the savings, I help them understand that by design, these plans are meant to make saving easy. You're signing up, it's a pay period deduction, per pay period deduction. It's coming straight out of pay, goes right into the plan. It's that systematic, automatic saving. And we know that's the best, most effective way to save. I'm often asked, how much do I need to contribute? So here I'm helping employees really look at their budget and cash flow. How much money is there to save? And then the challenge becomes, once we identify how much today, we've got to manage that budget to create more ways to save. And that's over time. So also, if you're digging into budget, it's important that I'm helping my clients to understand the tax benefits of saving as well. Today, many retirement plans sponsored by employers offer their employees contribution options that are both pre-tax and after-tax Roth savings. So someone who is electing to make a pre-tax contribution, that's going to reduce their tax liability today. If they're opting for an after-tax contribution, that's going to provide tax-free income in retirement, which can be good for the budget at that time. And when deciding that how much to save, a very important consideration needs to be the employer contribution. Many employers are willing to put money into the retirement plan for their employees. So most people don't need help with this because free money speaks loud and clear. However, I'm going to help that employee see that employer contribution over a long period of time is going to make up a significant portion of their overall savings. And finally, it's all very important, but this piece is key. We've got to talk about the investment elections. Investments are going to drive the growth of those savings. So I've got to help employees understand what their options are. Most retirement plans, especially the ones that we manage here at TCF, they're going to offer employees great access to the market at a low cost and through mutual funds usually. So I know investing can feel complicated for a lot of my clients, and they may seek additional advice from an advisor when it comes to building an investment portfolio. And certainly as account balances grow, the more advice you're getting and seeking and the more knowledgeable you'll become, the better prepared you're going to be for retirement. And Dave, I'm sure you can speak to investment alternatives outside of the employer sponsor plan.
Sure, Kenna. With regards to that, when working with clients outside of a retirement plan, there's a lot of considerations we take into place when we're looking at working with somebody. We're taking into consideration their income, their expenses, their tax situation, the family dynamics, children, no children, second marriages, sometimes third or fourth, it all depends. There's a lot of different components that go into building a family in today's world. Sometimes we may be taking into consideration different states, Nal even alluded a little bit of that into what retirement means to folks. But as we engage into a plan and engage into discussions with folks, it's both on a narrative basis, but also using many computer-based programming and planning tools that we have. And there's times we may need to establish a traditional or Roth IRA for folks. And if we've had somebody that may have transitioned from a group-based employer plan, such as Ken had talked about, they become a small business operator, we may need to consider a simple IRA or SEP IRA. And of course, then we're dealing with potential employee issues that they may even be having. But in general, depending on where they're at along their journey, we may just find it advantageous to help them consolidate accounts so they can be more focused on the end goal of retirement. Some of the tools we'll use can range from brokerage accounts to custom managed advisory portfolios where we have access to 1,500 different institutional portfolios. all these different portfolios, we can narrow it down to really three primary types of asset management. There's strategic, there's dynamic, there's tactical asset management strategies. And that's kind of a mouthful. A lot of times people hear that and are like, what did you just say? But if you think about it, if we're sailing out in the ocean, strategic asset management, that's where we're going to be sailing, and we're going across the lake, we're from one side to the other. We're really going to go straight across. And if there's a storm that comes up, we're going to sail right through it. It's going to get a little rough. We're going to have some heavy wave action going on there. But you'll make it through, but it is going to be more volatile. The dynamic asset management process, that's, we're going to try to navigate around the storm some. Tactical, they try to get actually off the water and try to help, preserve some, minimize volatility for clients. So a lot of different options we've got there. There's other clients we've got that are more sensitive to market risk, and they may want to consider a structured annuity, which can buffer downside risk. They pick the downside number, whether 5 or 10% they're willing to take the heat on. And yet they can provide or participate in upside potential, within the market when it's working its way up. Yet we have other folks that are even more adverse than that. They may want guaranteed strategies such as a fixed annuity or an indexed or a fixed annuity, a CD strategy. So there's a lot of areas to consider when we're talking about investments. But at the same time, investments aren't the only areas to take into consideration. Insurance is often many times a very large area of concern we have to look at for risk management, to conduct the proper risk analysis for life insurance and long-term care. I'm sure Nal is engaging in not only everything I've mentioned, but also a number of these strategies as he's working with clients as well.
Absolutely, Dave. Hey, you said it well. And, when I think about retirement planning and financial planning, a lot of times clients think about just their 401k, just their investment when they talk about retirement. But like you mentioned, there's a lot that goes into it. There's the risk management side, there's the banking, cash management, trust and estate. So the key is to look at the overall financial picture, not just diving into just your 401k or just your retirement account. There's a lot that goes into it. So as I mentioned, the type of clients that we work with, we have a disciplined process that we engage our clients through. And the main goal is to understand the vision and purpose that they have for their wealth, and to make sure that we guide them through that. And basically kind of comes down to, Dave, you mentioned that earlier, to having a solid plan in place. I think that's the key. That's going to be the blueprint. That's going to be the foundation. And we want to make sure that during like market volatilities that we're experiencing right now during the pandemic, I think that's the key, to have a solid plan in place and to make sure that we have solid things in place to navigate them throughout those storms. So yeah, insurance planning is one big thing that we help our clients with. Even when it comes to wealth transfer strategies, we use certain types of insurance vehicles to make sure that we can accomplish those goals. Back to you, Brandon.
Thanks, Mal. I want to drill in a little more. You kind of mentioned some terms out there, 401ks, 403bs if you're working at a university probably, or a nonprofit. Then you got IRAs, so maybe, if I could ask kind of your thoughts on, what's the difference between if I contribute to an IRA or 401k, and should I be contributing to both, and what's the benefit?
Well, so that's a good question. And that's one that I run into when working with employees. So both the IRA and the 401k are retirement savings vehicles. IRA stands for the individual retirement account, where 401k is just an employer-sponsored plan where the participant has their own account within. So one really big difference between the two are the contribution limits to those plans. So the IRS is going to regulate how much an individual can contribute to either on an annual basis. So the 401k by design has a very lofty limit set by the IRS. One place where they may be generous, don't always use that in the same sentence. But in a 401k, you can contribute $19,500 this year as an individual participant. Someone who is age 50 and older can make additional contributions called catch-up. They can contribute up to $26,000 this year. In an IRA, you're much more limited to how much you can defer into those plans. So someone this year could contribute $6,000. Again, if you're 50 or older, you could do an additional $1,000 for a total of $7,000. So that said, I generally encourage someone who has access to a 401k just to start there. In addition to those higher contribution limits, again, that 401k is easy because it's a payroll deduction. That systematic, automatic, I said, that's the best strategy for saving. Also today, a 401k plan very commonly offers a participant both pre-tax and after-tax Roth contribution options. Maybe in the past, Roths weren't available in the 401k, but we're seeing them there today. And again, there's that free money component that I mentioned earlier. So an employer might be willing to put money into that plan for you if you participate. And even if they don't go ahead and make a contribution to the plan, a lot of times employers are signing up to cover some of those account fees. So they're paying account maintenance fees to make that account more affordable for you. Now, it's not until someone maybe is maxing out or at a place of maxing out the 401k, that's when they might look to an IRA because they could contribute to both. But if you're maxing out the 401k, that might be the time to look to the IRA. Again, if there's additional funds that you have to put away. Another option for going outside of the 401k would be for outside investments. Again, the 401ks by design are usually limited and you usually just have access to mutual funds. Although good access to the market, there may be another investment out there that you're looking for, not available in the 401k.
Well, it sounds like a great vehicle for saving. Obviously, the tax advantages of it, the employer match in many cases, the higher limits. So what do you see, what's your experience for people that may be just getting started in retirement, why they wait to participate in a 401k or a 403b plan?
Well, so that's a great question. And there are a ton, I guess we'd call them obstacles of why someone would not sign up. And that's because that's just how we work. We can make excuses about anything, but honestly, so there doesn't need to be. I do find new employees, they may not receive good education up front from their employer regarding the plan or how to get started. So I have found by making myself available to these participants to provide just some basic general education, answer some questions one-on-one, that's really going to put someone at ease, where they maybe were hesitating before. Another obstacle is money. It's always hard for us to part ways with our money. So I'm going to work with a participant to explain, okay, how much is a 5% pre-tax deduction, for example, gonna affect your take-home paycheck? And if we need to start at a lower rate, then that's fine too. We just want to I'm trying to encourage employees, just create the habit is the first step, no matter what the amount is you're contributing. Because once you start, it's easier to increase from there. And then there's the investments. Fear of not knowing what to do can stop a lot of people, or fear of not knowing where in the market to go. That's going to stop a lot of people from even getting started. One thing to mention though, fortunately, many employers know that there are these obstacles. And so they're trying to give a helping hand nowadays. And they can do that with plan design. So plans today, some of them are actually being written with automatic enrollment features. And again, they're just getting their employees started with a deduction. There's also an automatic deferral increase feature. If you start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% today, next year we're going to automatically increase you to 6%. And plans today are also getting themselves set up with what's called a qualified default investment alternative, QDIA for short. And what happens there, if someone fails to make an investment election for their contribution, the plan is actually going to default them into this fund which is usually age and risk appropriate. So long story short, employers know, we know it's hard to get started, but we really got to do a good job to communicate the big benefits of doing so.
Yeah, it really is compelling when you get people on that journey started in investing and starting with a 401k. You mentioned something interesting there, kind of around people's fears kind of prevent them from taking action. And Dave, I'm going to come to you on this. There's actually, I'm going to hit this button here. There's a question that came through that I think ties into my next question I want to throw to you, Dave, around the types of investments. You know, we hear stocks and bonds, mutual funds. Someone in the audience also asked, you know, say commodities, you know, hard assets like gold. Where do you think a client should be investing in their retirement accounts? When you think of those different asset classes, and again, someone asked the question specifically, should they be investing some of their portfolio in retirement assets in the gold?
Sure, Brendan. Of course, asset allocation can seem somewhat boring at times, but at the same time, it leads to greater than 90% success rate in long-term financial planning to help getting somebody to their success. Of course, depending on our audience, stocks are ownership in companies, bonds are, you know, a lender, gold is a commodity, real estate is a commodity. So there's, you know, many different angles. Most of those are pretty much the primary areas that we can invest in. You know, mutual funds are a blend of typically all of those items I mentioned, you know, give or take. And so I guess when we take into consideration, you know, what to hold and what to have in place, we have to come back to our kind of what our static nerve is. You know, who are we? You know, do we have a personality that can handle volatility and risk? You know, if we're back on that sailboat, you know, do we have a personality that can handle 20, 30% swings in the market? Or do we have more of a sensitive sciatic nerve that's going to require us to, you know, maybe be in more of that 5 to 10% range? If we understand our personalities, and then that's where we come into helping folks significantly. You know, we're going to need to possibly have a little bit more bonds in the portfolio to provide that hedge. Yet stocks will provide us more growth over time. So it's always a tug of war for folks. And as we're in changing environments and changing economic conditions with low interest rate environments, you know, these conditions change where we can see more growth opportunity in one sector versus another, one type of holding versus the other. So, you know, the long and the short of it is there's a lot of approaches we can take. A big part of this though comes down to what type of journey, you know, what type of, you know, how do we want to navigate the course? Do we want to take the northern route and maybe travel some rougher seas, but possibly get there a little bit faster? Or do we want to take more of the Caribbean, you know, route? And hopefully we won't have a hurricane, but, you know, it just depends on just, you know, in general, we should have smoother sailing. And of course, all of those come into time and in relation as how long is it going to take for us to reach our destination, and how are we going to prepare ourselves based on what, you know, circumstances and storms we may come across. Hopefully I answered that thoroughly enough for you.
Yeah, well, a lot of choices, and I think that goes into, you know, seeking advice. But Ken, I want to come to you with a question that just popped up on my screen. I think you could handle this. You talked about the benefits for the employee of the 401k plan. You know, like tax deferral, you know, obviously if there's a match involved. There's a question that came through is, that's great for the employee. What's the benefit to the employer for offering that 401k plan?
Yeah, and that is a fair question. I would say today, most employers are coming to us because they want to be competitive and they want to retain talent, or they're trying to hire an executive, and maybe all they've ever had is a simple savings plan or something like that, where they're giving people access, but they need something a little bit more robust. So I'd say primarily it's for attracting talent today, benefits, financial wellness programs, health programs. They're all a key player for employers. Now, an employer today who starts up a new plan, for example, and enables some of those features, auto enrollment, auto escalation, you know, having a QDIA, well, with that Secure Act, you know, setting every community up for retirement that was recently enacted, there are big benefits. There's, deductions up to $5,000 for starting the plan. There's an extra $500 if you're doing that auto enrollment, another $5, if you enable that auto escalation. So there are deductible expenses for the employer, but I don't think that's the primary reason they get into it. Like the Secure Act, setting everyone up for retirement maybe isn't something we've always been really good at. And so employers are taking a vested interest in their team.
Good. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. Now I want to bring you into the conversation, kind of the do's and don'ts, if you will. What are some common mistakes you see clients making when it comes to planning for retirement?
Good question, Brendan. The most common thing that I see, I call this a water cooler talk, right? You're out with a bunch of friends and they're talking about, hey, I bought into Bitcoin, I bought this stock. Hey, I decided to take Social Security at this age. So I think the water cooler talk, that's where a lot of people make the biggest mistake, because what we got to know here, everyone's financial situation is different. The risk tolerance can be different than yours. So it's important to always talk to a financial professional rather than just hearing what's going on in the world or just talking to your friend. So I think that's the key. Always talk to a financial professional, find out what is the right time to take Social Security. What are some of the strategies that we need to employ and things like that. And the next common mistake that I see, people try to time the market. When you talk about the success ratio in timing the market, it's about 2%. It's very slim. And as we all saw this year, if someone tried to time the market, it's impossible. There's a lot of things that's happening right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people know where things are heading. So those are the most common mistakes that I see, where people kind of follow a trend. These days, when it comes to investments, a lot of people are listening to social media and people might be making decisions based on that. So it's always good to take a step back before you pull the trigger on anything. Talk to a financial professional, find out what's your ultimate goal. And it's important, anytime you're saving for retirement, doing anything, it's good to set a goal, set a plan, and then we can guide those clients through to get to the final end destination, right? So my biggest advice, I tell a lot of my clients, stay away from water cooler talk, because you never know what their financial situation is going to look like. And again, stay away from timing the market. It's impossible to do that.
It really is. It's kind of time in the market makes the biggest difference. I'm going to go to another question to you, Dave. This is a question from the audience. I thought it was interesting. The question, the gist of the question is you should have all your eggs in one basket. But how many baskets should you have, in essence? When you talk about spreading your money around in different vehicles, whether it be Roth IRAs, 401ks, does it make sense to spread that out into different types of vehicles, or should you have it in one basket?
Well, depending on whether we're talking about Roth IRAs or traditional IRAs, we're talking about a tax difference within that. So, we have to look at each basket based on what they're intended for. Most folks have pre-retirement money because they've accumulated it within a 401k over the years. Of course, the Roth 401k is a newer add-on feature that's coming about. So now we've got folks that are accumulating after-tax funds. We really have to take into consideration the baskets based on the tax situation where we're at today, as well as also where we're looking at heading down the road in retirement. If we're going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, there are reasons that the pre-tax contributions make more sense for that basket. But if we're going to have a higher tax bracket down the road in retirement, then the after-tax or Roth component makes more sense today. But then also to the aspect that you asked about of, the types of accounts, do we have these accounts to diversify for asset class or types of investments? As we have clients and depending on what their circumstances are, if we're looking at trying to build a guaranteed income stream for them or a systematic withdrawal, sometimes we split those strategies for folks. We may establish a guaranteed income stream with them for a part or their core essential retirement expenses, and that may be a different basket. And then at the same time, which could be an annuity, but then at the same time, for more of the discretionary expenses for retirement, we may utilize a systematic withdrawal, and that could be a separate, entirely separate type of asset manager altogether. It's not unusual that, depending on again the amount of resources we have to work with, but it's not unusual at all for me to see or have clients positioned in 2 or 3 different strategies just to complement and hedge one another to again help create that feel for them that doesn't disrupt them too much if we have a difficult market arise.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I could agree more. I think it really depends on the strategy, and there's different vehicles for different strategies. But I think diversity is kind of that common theme. Now I'm going to come to you, a question kind of financial risk in retirement, but I'm going to blend that with a question that came from the audience too. The question was, what are your thoughts on a 4% withdrawal rate in retirement and having a greater exposure to stocks for a longer retirement or leaving money to heirs? So I don't know if that would tie into kind of my original question I was thinking about around financial risk in retirement, but what is a rule of thumb like 4%? Is that the right number for people? I mean, or does that play into kind of possible financial risk if you go into retirement thinking that's going to be a withdrawal rate through your retirement years?
Yeah, that's a good question, Brendan. It all kind of depends on, when we meet with clients, we try to understand what their lifestyle looks like, right? And a common question we always ask, our clients ask us, how much money do we need to have? Someone might be able to retire with $1 million. Some might just need only maybe $500,000. So it all depends on your lifestyle. A 4% withdrawal rate, I would say that's a healthy amount, but the portfolio needs to support that too, right? If a portfolio is generating 2 to 3%, a 4% withdrawal might not sustain long term. So I think the biggest thing is to understand, kind of dive into the basics, look at what your cash flow looks like, and have a plan in place, and then to execute based on that. But as I mentioned, that's a common question that we always get. How much money do we need to have? It all depends on your lifestyle and your spending habits. And we spend a lot of time when we talk about financial planning. It's not about building a significant amount of wealth. It's all about managing how much money you spend, because you can have a couple $1 million and you can go through that money in a couple of years very easily. So the key is to stay disciplined and go from there.
Yeah, and I think the planning is such an important part of that. Is kind of knowing your number. Is it 4%? Is it 1%? Is it 10%? It's really, going through that cash flow analysis that Ken had described earlier. People thinking through what they should contribute is really having a good grasp on what you need and what your assets truly will support. I'm not a big fan of rules of thumb myself personally. I think it's a great conversation start. It's a starting point. But the reality is your situation is always going to be unique, and the advice needs to be tailored to your goals and objectives. This year, we all know 2020 is a year we want to forget, most of us. It's not been a lot of fun. Here we are doing this meeting over Zoom, which isn't bad, but we'd love to be in person. But we got the challenge, and the challenge has impacted health for many of us. It's impacted our finances. Whether it be job, employment, if you're a business owner, some businesses are doing well, some businesses aren't even open today. And so it's really been a crazy, crazy year. And I know we're all looking forward to getting to 2021, but maybe this is for all the panelists. What challenges have you helped clients get through this year in 2020, and maybe some things that you've helped them avoid or they should think about avoiding as we kind of get through this very difficult year? And I'll start back at the topic, and maybe kind of if you could start off and
Sure.
give your thoughts on 2020.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you don't want all my thoughts on 2020.
Cool.
But the deal is, sadly, we all know people who aren't working right now, who have been furloughed, have lost their jobs, and are experiencing financial hardship during 2020. So as a result, we're all forced to look at our personal cash flow and our emergency savings. I would say my clients and employers today understand more than ever that need to kind of broaden their financial education that they're offering to their employees. And I mentioned it up before, that financial wellness program. So not every employer has this expansive program, but those who don't, they may just look to the resources they do have, such as their retirement plan provider. So this year, although it's been different because, like you said, it's virtual, I'm not only engaging with employees on the topic of retirement savings, but we're drilling down a bit more and having conversations about managing the budget, making room not only for, increasing savings, but we need to talk a bit more about emergency savings as well, just as an example. And then there's been the conversations about CARES Act. So CARES Act is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. So this new legislation in 2020 allows individuals an increased stability to access funds from their retirement accounts. One thing to note, not all employers or retirement plan sponsors are obligated to amend plans to make this relief available. However, where it is available, an employee could take a COVID-related distribution. We call that a CRD. They could take that in any amount up to $1,000 or $100,000. From that, the normal 10% IRS penalty tax is going to be automatically waived. And then the individual taking that CRD has the option to spread that reported income over 3 years for tax purposes. In addition to the CRD, the CARES Act has also relaxed loan provisions and plans where loans are available. But the deal is, these distributions, they could actually be detrimental to an individual's goals and their plan for retirement. So I'm helping my clients by having conversations with them about their particular and unique circumstances this year. And then we're walking through the options. And fortunately, people do have a few more options as a result of that CARES Act. And Dave, I'm sure you're having similar conversations with your clients.
I have, Kenna. Through the pandemic, we've been seeing a number of people at times have to take some premature distributions, which the CARES Act has obviously helped minimize the premature tax penalty for those folks that have been impacted. Although many times we're working with clients for a while and we've been developing strategies with them, we will encourage them to build up what we call a non-qualified portfolio, probably in easier language that could kind of be thought of as like a pre-retirement account or after-tax account. That may be managed a little bit more conservatively as that backup reserve for cash. In proper financial planning standards, we want to try to have 6 months of a backup reserve, but we don't have to necessarily let that sit in cash where it's not earning anything. We can still allow it to be growing and use that as a reserve. I think Nala would agree for many of our folks, really this year has just provided us one more opportunity to stress test plans, to really look at the long-term goals and focus on, how things need to be long-term, which will then really look past these short-term black swans. Or at least I'm thinking short-term black swan like COVID-19.
Absolutely. 2020, it's been a tough year for a lot of us, right? And when you think about money, money is emotional. This is something where a lot of us have worked really hard to save for our families, for generations, for retirement. And when we're experiencing what we are going through right now, it's tough for clients to not make an irrational decision. You tune into any news channel, especially with the election going on, with the pandemic and the stock market where it is right now, a lot of people panic. So what we have been doing, we've been talking to a lot of clients. Typically with a client, if you meet maybe twice a year, we've been picking up the phone and calling those clients to make sure that, this is one less thing to worry about. And our clients look at us as we are their trusted partner. And our goal is to make sure that we are there along the way during this journey, right? And like Dave mentioned, when we do financial planning, we stress test the plan for various different economic conditions. So it's important that we are there for our clients when they need us. So the key is we've been, spending a lot of time talking to our clients and making sure that we're helping them to stay the course. A lot of people in March, when the stock market crashed, their first instinct, if they're closer to retirement, a lot of people want to cash out and get out of the market. But we saw what happened, right? Within a month or two, the market is back up to where it was before. So like Dave mentioned, we have a disciplined process. We make sure that with financial planning, we help our clients through their journey. And we are always there to make sure that they're not going to make that irrational, emotional decision. And that's where they need to rely on us to kind of walk them through that journey. And Kenna brought up a good point. Having the right amount of liquidity is the key, right? When the market is down, if you have a significant amount of money saved up in your liquid savings or money market account, there's really nothing you need to worry about. You just wait till the markets come back up and you rely on the cash that's available. So those are some of the strategies that we have employed with our clients to kind of help them through this retirement journey and to navigate through this pandemic.
Thanks, Now. Again, it's the long view, which is the important thing, right? Because most of our retirements are going to be multi-decades. The average still is we're living longer, and so we got to plan longer. There is one last question here that's from the audience, and I wanted to get to. Anyone want to raise their hand for this one? Maybe you have real estate that you own. It's a real estate question, and it's a typical couple question. One person has a view of one way, and the other one has maybe the view the other way. And the question really around they own real estate, rental property, and so they're getting passive income from that right now. And the question is, should they sell it going into retirement, or should they hang on to it in their retirement years and give them a relatively predictable source of income? Anyone want to try to tackle that question?
Sure, I can. I have rental properties myself. Have been a landlord for 29 years. I know some significant landlords. That's, unless you're going to grow large enough to where you can start to outsource, the challenge that comes in with real estate, physical hands-on management of real estate, age and fatigue. Not only there's three components of managing real estate. You have to keep your books in order. You have to have your management in order, the relationships, and the third aspect is your maintenance. And if you're trying to do all three, you have to try to factor in somehow the element of age and just developing fatigue. What happens if one spouse that's tracking, keeping up on all the maintenance, something happens to them? If you don't have a backup plan for that, you're going to have some disruptions, just like you would in any other type of portfolio. And deferral in books, deferral in relationship management, or in maintenance are all going to create stress on a portfolio. And whether it's in the market or whether it's in real estate with tangible assets, you're going to have risk. So you need to make sure you have things well organized and you document and you build a plan. And if you don't have that laid out, you're gonna, one way or another, a plan's gonna be made for you. It just may not be probably the one you want.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I also own real estate, and I'm in the school of thought that when I retire, I really want to retire. I don't want to deal with tenants.
Sure.
I don't want to get that phone call at 12 o'clock on Thanksgiving evening when the hot water tank goes out in the property. Things I've done in the years I've owned properties that happens. But there's plenty of people that their retirement years, they define it differently. They want to roll up their sleeves and maybe do more work on their rental properties, so they have the time for it. So it's really a personal choice. But again, I think as an investment class, it's a good investment class. It's just, you can't lose sight that rental properties take work, and it may not fit in with your view of what retirement should be when you get to retirement. There is one other question I think we maybe answer quickly here. It is, I'm trying to create a plan. Oops, as I just touched the wrong part of my screen. Hang on 1 second here. Trying to create my own retirement plan. What big questions should I be asking myself as I think about designing my plan? And maybe it's a couple of big things. We just have a couple minutes left here, but now maybe you've answered this already, but what should I be asking myself as I'm thinking about designing my plan?
I would say the biggest thing is to understand what your end goal is. What is your vision? What is your purpose? What you're trying to accomplish, and put that down on paper. When I do financial planning with clients, if it's a married couple, I'll tell both of them to write a letter of intent. And the husband might have a completely different vision and the wife might have a completely different vision. So basically, in the end, we tell both of them, let's blend it together, let's meet in the middle. I think that's the biggest thing. You need to figure out what the vision, what your purpose is, and then figure out your budget. I think the cash flow piece is the critical piece there. And also the risk management. A lot of people don't think about the downside. When you're doing financial planning, you got to plan for the unforeseen things that can derail the financial plan. So what I mean by that, losing a job, losing a loved one, long-term care events, a lot of those things can derail a financial plan. So for instance, when I meet with clients, I ask about, their parents, their medical conditions, their health conditions, and things like that. And so to bring up an example, if someone goes into memory care in state of Minnesota, you're spending about $100,000 a year. So those are some of the things that you need to think about and make sure that you have, from a risk management standpoint, that you plan for like the unforeseen situations that can come and derail a solid financial plan. So that's the key. You got to think about all different facets of your financial plan, not just the investment component. Think about the banking, cash management, tax strategies, risk management, estate planning. I think that's one of the big things. You can have all the assets that you want, but if you don't do proper estate planning, you're going to spend a lot of money. The heirs are going to spend a lot of money one day trying to solve a big puzzle there. So those are some key things to think about. And if I missed anything, Dave, feel free to add anything on your end.
You're right. You're spot on. I mean, the key is you've got to be able to look at the end goal and follow through on the plan. And you have to remember that just because you put a plan together doesn't mean that that's in stone. A plan is a living document that you have to revisit and adjust as life changes and adjusts, whether family, jobs, health, all these dynamic nature elements. As everything's changing, the plan will need to adjust and change. And the key with working with an advisor is not necessarily to just receive all the answers, but to receive insight from somebody that's not in maybe the same storm that you're sitting in. When you're trying to navigate yourself through a situation, sometimes you just can't see where you're at because you don't have the radar screen that somebody else may be able to have a different angle of view with. So it's just a matter of proper planning and monitoring and adjusting.
Hey, thanks, Nala and Kenna. Thank you. I think we're at the top of the hour. I think we answered many of the questions, but there's some still out there. And you want to get our advice, I'd recommend you kind of reaching out via our site. It's tcf.com/wealth. There's resources within that site, and you can connect with one of our advisors to help think through these issues. And they are complex. And so don't feel you're alone and try to navigate retirement, whether you're in retirement or planning for retirement. The key is getting good and accurate advice. I want to thank again our panelists, and want to thank the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. And most importantly, thank you for all of you who have taken the time out of your day to hear us and learn a little more about retirement planning. I think by doing that, you're going to get on the right path if you're not already on that path. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to Julie.
Thank you so much. Thank you, our panelists, and for all who joined us today. Again, this is recorded, so we will be sending this out for anyone who did join us, but also anyone who was not able to stay on can watch the video again and ask questions as well. Thank you for sharing, as I've got on the screen, the website for TCF Wealth Management. Hope that you enjoyed this, gave you some great nuggets of information, and maybe just becomes a starting point for new conversations. Thank you again. Watch our website for future upcoming webinars, and we look forward to your feedback on today. Thank you.
Thank you all.